For 30 years, Johnny Carson stuck to one rule above all others. Don't get caught in a fight. Don't take sides. Stay out of it. Don't be the judge. Be the host. But Johnny broke his own rule on March 22, 1984. Artist Sarah Mitchell was his guest, and she was in the middle of Hollywood's biggest scandal. The newspapers wouldn't stop. The accusations were spread all over the place, and most people already thought she was guilty. Producers for Johnny had told him, "Just do the interview. Ask the same questions everyone else has asked. Stay neutral." But when Sarah sat down across from him and looked tired and beaten, Johnny changed his mind. He saw someone get hurt by a system that didn't care about the truth, just making news. John did that. He did something he had never done before. He chose a side. Johnny spoke straight to the camera and said, "I'm going to say something that might make people feel bad. What's happening to this woman is wrong. We should all take a good look at ourselves and ask why we're so quick to judge people before we know the whole story." America watched as Johnny Carson, the most powerful man on TV, used that power to defend someone who had none left. There was immediate backlash. NBC executives panicked. Sponsors threatened to pull out, but Johnny didn't back down. By the time the interview was over, the national conversation had changed, not because Johnny changed anyone's mind, but because of what he said. But because he reminded everyone that there are things more important than being neutral, like standing up for what's right. On March 22, 1984, Sarah Mitchell's career was hanging by a thread. 3 weeks earlier, a tabloid had published a story about her. It included claims of unprofessional behavior on set from unnamed sources, rumors that quickly spread to every major newspaper. The story kept getting worse and more scandalous, and Sarah, who had worked hard for 10 years and finally gotten her first lead role, watched it all fall apart. What was worse was not the accusations themselves, but how quickly everyone believed them. There was no investigation, no proof, just headlines. And in Hollywood, headlines were enough. Her agents stopped calling. Even talk shows that wanted her to be on suddenly couldn't because of other commitments. Sarah Mitchell had been tried and found guilty by the court of public opinion without even having a chance to defend herself. Then The Tonight Show called. Johnny Carson's staff wanted her to come on. Sarah's publicist told her not to, because they would ask about the scandal and put her on trial in front of 20 million people. Don't do it. But Sarah didn't see another choice. The tabloids had destroyed her without giving her a voice. Maybe Johnny would at least let her speak. She said yes. On the day of the taping, Sarah sat in the green room trying to get ready. Fearing she would lose her cool, Sarah practiced what she was going to say and how she was going to stay calm even when the questions got tough. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and her publicist paced tensely. "Just answer the questions. Don't get defensive. Don't cry, and whatever you do, don't lose your temper." Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "5 minutes, Miss Mitchell." Sarah stood up, smoothed out her dress, and tried to remember how to breathe. This was it, her last chance to save her career. She had one last chance to tell the truth before everyone forgot she was more than a headline. Johnny was already on stage giving his speech, and Sarah could see Johnny doing what he'd done. Sarah wished she could feel light and easy like that. Instead, she felt like she was walking toward her own execution. Johnny introduced her. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome actress Sarah Mitchell." The applause was polite, cautious, not hostile, but not warm either. The audience knew why she was there. Everyone knew. Sarah walked onto the stage with her head up, trying to look confident, but on the inside she was falling apart. She sat down in the guest chair. Johnny smiled at her, that famous Johnny Carson smile, but Sarah could see something else in his eyes. Pity, sympathy, she wasn't sure. They talked for a minute. How was the drive over? It was strange to hear nice things about Sarah. Then Johnny asked, "Sarah, there have been some serious allegations in the press recently. I think everyone would like to hear your side of the story." Sarah took a deep breath. This was her chance. She began to answer, saying that the accusations were false, that the unnamed sources didn't exist, and that the whole thing had been blown out of proportion. But before she could finish her first sentence, Johnny raised his hand and stopped her. Sarah's heart sank. Was he already cutting her off? Was he not going to let her speak? But Johnny wasn't stopping her to move on. He was stopping her to answer. Johnny turned away from Sarah and spoke directly into the camera. His voice was different. Not the friendly TV host voice, but a deeper, more serious one. Let me say something first before Sarah has to defend herself on national television. I've been doing this show for 22 years, and one of my rules has always been to stay neutral, to not take sides, to let people speak for themselves, and to let the audience make up their own minds. He paused, and the studio went silent. But I'm going to break that rule tonight because what's happening to Sarah Mitchell isn't just about her. It's about how we treat people in this country, how we ruin someone's reputation based on tabloid stories from unnamed sources, and how we decide someone is guilty before we even know the facts. Sarah stared at Johnny, not sure if she was hearing it. Johnny Carson kept talking. I've read the stories about Sarah, and you know what I noticed? Not one of them has anyone willing to put their name behind the allegations. Not one of them has any actual evidence. Only sources say and insiders claim. And that's enough to ruin someone's career, he said. That's not journalism. That's gossip. And we should all be ashamed that we're letting it pass as news. The audience went silent. You could hear people breathing. This wasn't comedy anymore. This was something real. Johnny turned back to Sarah. So, before I ask you a question, I don't think you should have to defend yourself. Sarah, the people who printed these stories without checking to see if they were true should be defending themselves. But since they're not here and you are, the floor is yours. Take as much time as you need. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. They weren't sad tears. They were relieved tears. For the first time in 3 weeks, someone was treating her like a person instead of a scandal. Thank you, she managed to say. The real story, not the tabloid version, the actual truth about what had happened on set. The misunderstanding that was turned into something bad, and the nameless sources that didn't exist. Johnny looked at it, paid attention, asked questions to follow up. Don't talk over her. Let her talk. Let her be heard. 20 minutes. That was the length of the conversation. This segment is twice as long as a standard Tonight Show segment. To make room for it all, NBC would have to cut other shows. John didn't care, though. Sarah was still crying when the ad break came on. This time, though, she was also happy. Still saying, "Thank you," she did it again. "This doesn't make sense to you." Johnny put his hand on hers. "You should be heard." That's all. The confusion in the control room was something Sarah didn't see. The people in charge at NBC were going crazy. He just chose a side in a big argument. The advertisers are going to be very angry. We need to pull this. We can't show it. The show was live, though. It couldn't be pulled. 20 million people had just seen Johnny Carson break his most important rule. The phones were already going off. The network switchboard lit up right away. Thousands of calls, some angry, some helpful, all very strong. By morning the next day, every newspaper in the U.S. had written about it. It's no longer Sarah's issue, but Johnny's defense. People who didn't agree with him said it was brave and the right thing to do. Some people said he went too far and that talk show hosts should not take sides and that it wasn't his job to protect someone who was involved in a scandal. 2 companies did take down their ads. It cost the network a huge amount of money. Executives at NBC John was called in for a meeting. He was told that he had put them in a tough spot. He was told to be more careful from now on. Johnny paid attention to everything. Then he said something that made them gasp. I would do it again. Someone was telling lies about that woman, and I had a chance to stop them. I did that. We'll get new supporters if that means losing the ones we have now. On the other hand, I won't just stand there and watch someone get killed on my show. It was the leaders who gave up. What were they going to do? Get rid of Johnny Carson? He was the Tonight Show. For Sarah, the effect was felt right away. The conversation changed the story. Not right away, not all at once, but enough. When other media looked into the first story, they found that the unnamed sources didn't believe that important facts had been lied about or overstated. Not long after, on page 12, the tabloid that started it all printed a retraction. It was hidden, but it was still a retraction. Sarah's handlers called her again. Some of them, not all of them. The company didn't put her back in the original part. That ship had already left, but they gave her a different part. Less big, but a start. Sarah got her pride back, which was more important. There was at least one powerful person who had stood up for her, believed her, and was ready to risk something to protect her. After many years, Sarah was asked about that night on The Tonight Show in an interview. "Johnny made my job possible," she said. "More than that, he kept my faith in people. When everyone else thought I was guilty, he was the only one who would say, 'Wait, let's hear her side.' That meant everything." She paused because she was feeling sad. He put sponsors, his relationship with NBC, and his image for being fair in his defense. He did what he thought was right, even though he wasn't required to. Johnny didn't talk about it in public very often. He'd brush it off when asked. "What I said was just what I thought should be said." But people who knew him said it made him sad. He hadn't wanted to do it, but he had to. That the news was so quick to hurt people. That everyone wanted to think the worst. The truth no longer seemed to matter to anyone. Just scandals, news stories, and the next one. That's why Johnny's support for Sarah was so strong. It wasn't just about her. We all took part. It was about how we get our news, how we treat famous people, and how quickly we judge others without having all the facts. That night, Johnny held up a mirror. America had to take a look at itself. A lot of people did not like what they saw. Johnny was aware of the danger he was in, was aware that protecting Sarah might not work out, that he would look stupid if the accusations were true. People would have less faith in him. But he did it anyway because when he looked into Sarah's eyes, he saw someone who was telling the truth and someone who was being hurt by lies. He couldn't stay neutral anymore, not now. That's what really happened on March 22, 1984. It's not enough that Johnny Carson stood up for someone. He chose principle over safety, truth over lies. Being neutral. He chose to speak out instead of keeping quiet when everyone else told him to play it safe, not get involved and stay out of trouble. Johnny did the right thing instead. And yes, it did cost him money, donors, and some friendships. It did show something important, though. That people with platforms need to take care of things. Not just to have fun, but also to speak out against wrongdoing. To tell the truth when everyone else is lying. To protect those who can't protect themselves. Sarah Mitchell had a good career after that. She worked hard and got good roles, but she wasn't a superstar. She earned respect in the business and spent years defending people who had been wrongly accused. Many more people have been hurt by media cases and tabloid destruction. There was something Johnny taught me that night. He taught me that one person can make a difference, she said. Now, it's the least I can do to be that person for other people. Johnny Carson died in 2005, at the service for his death. There was Sarah Mitchell. She didn't say anything, but she brought something with her. A piece of paper from March 23, 1984. The newspaper headline the next day said, "Carson breaks neutrality, defends embattled actress." Sarah had kept it for 21 years as a memory of the person who stood up for her when everyone else had turned their backs on her. It's not just about Johnny that needs to learn. It's about all of us. We're all guilty of what those tabloids did in 1984 in this world of instant verdicts and trials on social media. We see the title. We come up with an idea. We agree with it. We add on. We don't ask ourselves often enough, is this true? Is this fair? Is this right? That night, Johnny Carson told us that staying neutral isn't the most important thing. Like telling the truth, being fair, and letting people speak out before we destroy them. Remember Sarah Mitchell and Johnny Carson the next time you see someone being torn apart online, when the mob is gathering, or when everyone has already decided that someone is guilty. Then ask yourself, am I being fair or am I just piling on? People who are brave enough to stand up when everyone else is breaking things are the ones who make the world a better place. That was shown by Johnny. It's possible for us too if we pay attention. If this story made you feel something, click the button that